Hello, just a quick one before we get into today's episode. I'm running my next Amazon Seller Support and Connect session at 12:30 p.m. on Wednesday the 6th of May. It's completely free, and if you're selling on Amazon and feeling a bit stuck or you've got questions you want answered properly, this is for you. It's a relaxed session, part update, part Q&A, and you can bring whatever it is you're working on. I'm going to put a link in the show notes for you to book your place. It's completely free. I'd love to see you there.
Welcome to the Bring Your Product Idea to Life podcast. This is the podcast for you if you're getting started selling products or if you'd like to create your own product to sell. I'm Vicky Weinberg, a product creation coach and Amazon expert. Every week I share friendly, practical advice as well as inspirational stories from small businesses. Let's get started. Hello, welcome to this episode of Bring Your Product Idea to Life. Today I'm speaking to Holly Stafford-Smith from GH Stafford. So Holly helps run her fourth generation family business supplying leather goods and accessories to wholesalers and retailers across the UK and Ireland. So Holly's role spans buying, supplier relationships and the wider commercial direction of the business, with a focus on modernising and moving the business forward while staying true to their heritage. Holly has done lots of roles in the business. She's actually worked for her business for 19 years now, and the business is about to celebrate its 80th birthday next year, which is amazing. So we talk a lot about the business and how it was formed and how it's changed over those 80 years, but also a lot about Holly's role in that and her role working as part of a family business. We've had episodes before where families have been working together, but never multi-generational, I don't think, or for this length of time. And so Holly talks really openly and honestly about what that means for the business, some of the challenges, as well as some of the good things about working as a family, and she has some great advice for you as well. So I would love now to introduce you to Holly. So hi Holly, thank you so much for being here.
Most welcome. Thank you for having me.
Let's start by you please giving an introduction to yourself, your business and what you sell.
No problem. My name's Holly Stafford-Smith. I help run GH Stafford Son Ltd, which is our fourth gen family business. GH Stafford's was it started as a manufacturer in the 40s. We now supply leather goods and accessories to wholesalers and retailers up and down the UK. Bags, purses, wallets, belts, I could go on, but it's a real mix of leather and non-leather items. I have been in the business now for 19 years next month. I started out in payroll and imports paperwork, but as with most family business, your role evolves pretty quickly. Over time, I've moved through buying support, then into buying and into product decisions. I've done bits of customer service and sales along the way. Been very finger on the pulse operationally, rightly or wrongly. And then more recently, I've been focusing much more on the bigger picture, trying to look at how the business modernises and moves forward without kind of losing what's made it what it is.
Amazing, thank you. And I'd love to talk about that a little bit more as well, sort of how you're moving forwards, because I believe your business was founded by your granddad and great-granddad in 1947. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
So, yeah, what's the story about how it all started, Holly?
It started just after the war. My granddad started selling leather goods out the back of a van. That soon after they opened up a manufacturing factory. That was my granddad and great-granddad. I don't know whether you know, but Walsall's pretty renowned for the leather trade. It was really at the heart of the British leather trade back when the business was founded. So we had workers in the factory. We had piece workers that would work from their home. So, yeah, that was in 1947. And then as the kind of late 70s rolled round, where the British Labour was starting to creep up and the routes from China and India became that much easier to navigate, we started exploring importing. Over time, the manufacturing arm of the business slowly declined and the importing grew. And then by the early noughties, we were manufacturing our last piece. So since then, we've been focusing on importing by kind of focusing our energy on building our relationships with our suppliers over there, which, I mean, many of which we've been dealing with for decades now. So there's really strong ties there for us. But we still supply wholesalers, retailers of all kinds up and down the UK and Ireland.
Amazing, thank you. And that's, your business has been around for such a long time. How do you manage to stay relevant? Because obviously the market must have changed such a lot in those,
Yeah.
what are we, 60, 80 years? It's a long
80,
time.
we're 80 next year, yeah.
Wow.
That's an interesting one. I'm not. It's not as simple as saying we've always got it right, because I mean, has anybody? I don't know. But there have definitely been periods along our way, especially, and I can only attest to where my memory sits. I can't obviously go back to before I
Yeah,
was
of
born,
course.
but from what I know, in the 90s and noughties particularly, there was a period where the business grew exceptionally strongly, which was fantastic. And at that time, my dad had just had a great eye for product. He was very good at spotting what would work in the market at that time. I think along the way where we've stayed consistent, though, is in our approach and focus on the product. We have never particularly been known for as a fashion brand. We've never really chased the fads and chased the trends. We've always been focusing on creating products that are really good quality but still at accessible price points. We've never been high end. We don't like taking shortcuts, because quite often you might want to hit a certain price point, but if you put pressure on the factories, they will hit it, but the quality will suffer. So it's finding the balance there, I guess. That said, the market does move, trends shift, and if you kind of shut it off completely, you feel it in a negative way. So I think for us, it's been staying relevant in a more deliberate way, not necessarily chasing those kind of fast fashions, but keeping the quality good, the commercial appeal strong, and more recently, I feel like we've been trying to modernise how we operate, really, and making sure that we're not just relying on what's worked in the past, because, if you don't move, you get stuck.
That's really interesting. So are there any examples of anything that you've modernised recently that you want to tell us about?
Well, just this year, actually, we've invested in a new sales analytics system. So rather than the agents being paper-based, we're investing in them having iPads so they can have all the product data there. They've all got all the sales data so they can assist the customers with it. It's still early days. We're still learning the ropes with it, but it's felt like a moment to finally get that across the line. It's been something I've wanted to do kind of in the back of my mind for a number of years, and I started the project, it was this time last year, actually. So it feels like a moment to, yes, finally got that done.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And I guess for all of your sales staff, it'll make their jobs hopefully a lot easier as well.
Well, that's the idea. And I mean, I spent a long time saying to them, what can we do to help you? And that was one of the things that cropped up, which for me it was I don't want to say validating, because that seems it was good for my dad and my uncle, which are the joint MDs, joint shareholders. It was good for them to hear it from the agents and not just from me. I think it gave them the green light that it was the right thing to do, rather than just coming from me. Is how it felt anyway.
Thank you. So your sales agents, are they selling
Mm.
directly into retailers and wholesalers? Is that how the model works?
Yeah. So historically, yes, we've had sales agents. Our model really, for as long as I've been here, has been sales agents and trade shows. But with the way the market has changed with regards to, I don't know whether anyone else is feeling it, but we feel that the footfall at trade shows has dropped over the last decade or so. It's just not what it used to be. So though the agents trade show model was the backbone for many years, and even our agent network is smaller than it once was, so naturally they are more thinly spread. So what I'm trying to do right now is, which kind of plays into the system that we're implementing, is strengthening that model in the right way, but also I'm trying to find ways to make it a bit more balanced, so making it easier for customers to find us and buy from us. It's definitely an area we're still working on, and as an 80-year-old business with kind of the two heads of the business having been in it since, when did they join? Probably the 70s, late 70s. It's sometimes a battle, but we're getting there. And I feel like we're on a bit of a precipice, and I spend a lot of my day feeling very excited about what's to come.
Well, that's really good. And do you do any direct to consumer, or is it all B2B?
No, we are just B2B. We are well represented on Amazon and probably eBay, although not so much now. And that we've got plenty of customers out there doing it for us. We don't feel the need to cut them out, I suppose, is the way it would feel right now. It's never been anything we've wanted to pursue.
And has that always been the model right from the start? Was it ever B2C?
Do you know, I can't say for all certainty whether or not my granddad was ever selling B2C. I don't think so. It's certainly nothing that's ever been mentioned. Certainly by the time we got a factory, it was only B2B. But no, certainly to my knowledge, we've always been B2B.
Well, that's really interesting. So that's been the same model like the entire way through, which I think is, I guess, testament to the fact that it works.
Yeah, I know there are a lot of our competitors that do have an arm to the business that is direct to consumer, but we've just it's never felt right in my gut. Again, rightly or wrongly, I don't profess to have all the answers, but it's never really been anything that we've felt the need to pursue.
Yeah, I don't think there is any right or wrong. I think it's what's right or wrong for your own business. And like you said, it seems like it is really important for you to like not cut out your distributors and your retailers by competing against them directly. So it makes total, and I think after 80 years, if you were to suddenly do that, that would feel like a huge shift, and that would probably change like some of your relationships. That would
100%,
yeah, that would feel like that would be a big thing to do, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So how about your product range? Has that evolved over the years at all?
Yeah, so when we manufactured, we were manufacturing what was known at the time as small fancy leather goods, which is, don't ask me the relevance of the word fancy. I really don't know. I just remember seeing it on the top of our old letterheads. And what's really driven the business over the years is the need to keep evolving in response to what we feel, anyway, our customers need. As more competitors over the years have entered the market, we've had to make sure we're offering new things to keep relevant. Again, it's not necessarily about chasing the trends, because it's just not our space. It's not what we're known for. But adding products alongside what we already offer to complement what they already buy from us has generally been the way. That's led us to branch out over the years. So originally it was moving beyond the leather items into a broader accessories offering. And then more recently, I'm still going back 20 years, things like shopping trolleys. And when I say shopping trolleys, the way I always explain it is the old biddy shopping trolleys, which aren't old biddy shopping trolleys anymore because everybody uses them. And then walking sticks is something that's been exceptionally successful, which is probably within the last 8 to 10 years. There have been things along the way that we've picked up and had to let go because they haven't gone well. As with buying, you can't get everything right. Photo frames was one of the things we had to go at. Probably about 15 years ago, that was a massive fail. We've dabbled with hats. I wouldn't say it was a failure, but we didn't get it right. And we've even tried the odd item of clothing, just coats, which I don't know whether they weren't our space or we just didn't have the expertise at the time, but it wasn't repeated on. We didn't carry it on. But I think maybe that's part of it. When you evolve, you do have to be, if cash flow allows, willing to try new things and then be able to pivot and learn when it doesn't work. I don't know whether the term is a colloquial one, but there's no point trying to flog a dead horse. So let go quickly if it's not going to work. But yeah, refining your range in response to what you feel your customers are going to need.
That makes sense. And do you get feedback from your customers? Like, do you ever involve them in the decisions about what you stock and what you don't?
I wouldn't say we have a full consultation, but we definitely listen to feedback. It doesn't always go well. We might follow, oh, you should do this or you should do this, and have a dabble. And then, this is a really quite simple one, but one of the good ones was when we started selling walking sticks. You should sell the little ferrules that go on the bottom. Didn't even know the word ferrules. It's the little rubber foot that goes on the bottom because they wear out quickly. So they want to buy replacements. So we started selling ferrules, and it's a minor, tiny little thing that doesn't cost a lot at all. But it was an example of something you respond to because your customers suggest it. And I'm not sure we'd have ever come to that realisation ourselves without just that minor suggestion. So things like that, yes, we respond to frequently.
That makes sense. But I can also see from the other side that not every suggestion you'll get will be viable or
no, and
work out.
We think it might be, so we try it, but again, doesn't work, so we have to let it go.
But I guess one thing you can get from your existing customers, particularly the ones who've been with you for a really long time, is what sells well. I guess you must have that's something you must be able to see, which must be really useful, having been around for so long.
Yeah, that is something I'd still like to work on as well, because from our perspective here in the head office, we see numbers, broad spectrum numbers, and somebody might be selling something really well in a shop down in Cornwall, and when we discontinue because the sales are poor, they're up in arms, they're really upset with us because it's one of their best sellers and it's just not for us. So their numbers do not help us reach MOQs, so it's just no longer viable. Feedback is exceptionally valuable. I would like to formalise a way that we actually get it, because at the moment I've had this discussion with our agents and it's something I'd really like to work on with them. The feedback feels anecdotal and sporadic, so keeping tabs on it, realising what's an outlier and what is kind of pertinent to everybody is something that is difficult to navigate sometimes. So that's an area that I'd like to work on, definitely. But there are many.
I mean, there are always things, aren't there, you could do. And that must be really tricky as well, because with, selling all over the UK and Ireland as well, I didn't even think about the fact that there will be regional differences. So that must make it
massively
really hard to predict what will do well.
And hard to please everybody. You just can't do it.
Yeah. I'd love to pivot a little bit, if that's okay, and talk a little bit about the business, because obviously, as you mentioned right at the start, this is a family business. So when you were growing up, what did the business look like to you? Do you know what I mean? Because it's obviously something that's been a part of your life forever.
Well, I certainly didn't see it in the same way as I see it now. I mean, my earliest memories are just somewhere I used to come at the weekends. When I was getting under my mum's feet, and my dad used to come in on a Saturday, take Holly with you. Yeah, okay. So I'd just be building forts out in their boxes and so on, which oddly enough, my kids do now, which is quite nice to see that cycle repeating itself. Creating absolute carnage in the packing areas for them, the poor staff to have to come and sort through on a Monday morning, which wasn't pleasant for them, I've no doubt. It was, I suppose, in those early days, more of a playground than anything. And then as I got a little bit older, I remember coming into Spring Fair wearing in my teen years, I was wearing some kind of power suit thinking I looked fabulous, but being absolutely petrified that someone would come and ask me a question that I had no way of answering. And I always had a sense that I would end up in the business. I never really knew how or when that would happen. But when it did happen, it's not like the position was there waiting for me. I came in to cover payroll and import documentation for a lady that was off on long-term sick. And then, of course, 19 years later, I'm still here.
Well, that's really interesting. So that never was. So always, I guess it sounds like at the back of your mind, you always thought you'd be part of it, but there was also no plan as such.
No. Do you know, I think my dad wanted to keep me a little bit separate from it for a while because his relationship with my granddad was never great and he didn't really want me to be a part of that. But it just so happened that, like I say, my predecessor, she was doing payroll and imports, which is a slither of what I was doing. So she was off poorly. They had a temp come in who could only do the wages on the computer, and we were still using these long P11 deduction sheets. So they hired her for a week, realised she couldn't do it, and then finally had me come in.
So you mentioned
it was organically, yeah. It was never planned. It was just Holly can do it. Let's have her in. Okay.
And then you mentioned right at the beginning that you've worked in lots of different roles across the business. Do you think that's helped with your role in there today?
It's helped. Yeah, it's helped my level of understanding of things. I'm not sure it's helped with clarity across the board as a firm because it's always been lots of fingers in lots of pies, it's felt like. So definitely the breadth and depth of my experience has benefited from covering all areas at one time or another, or almost accidentally being pulled into it because I might have this little bit of knowledge up here that nobody else has. So you kind of get sucked into a lot of things that don't necessarily directly relate to you. So yeah, it's definitely helped from an experience perspective, but I wouldn't say it's always helped from a workflow and staying in your lane, clear job role perspective.
That makes sense. And is it you, your dad and your uncle from the family that are in the business now?
No, there's also my sister and my cousin. So my granddad was here till he was 5 days a week till he was 95.
Wow.
And he only stopped coming in at 97 because he had a fall, so he couldn't drive anymore. So up till 2018, I think that was, my granddad was still here. I started in 2007. My sister came in when I went off to have my first child in 2014, and then my cousin started when I went off to have my second child in 2017. When I got back, my sister moved over into sales, and she's now one of our freelance sales agents, and my cousin is still here, and then there's my dad and my uncle at the top.
Wow. And how was the dynamic between all of you?
Difficult to manage sometimes. I mean, one of the common themes, I think, with family businesses is that it can sometimes, when you have a commercial disagreement, it can sometimes be taken very personally. You might see as, misplaced loyalty or like a personal reflection on the other person when really you're just reacting to how you feel. So managing that is definitely a challenge. And again, I would say something that we don't necessarily get right all the time.
That must be really tricky, actually, having so many of you from the same family. I mean, I know you were ultimately working towards the same goal. Do you find there's generational difference, if you don't mind me asking, generational differences as well, in that your uncle and your dad have obviously been in the business a lot longer and are maybe used to doing things a certain way?
And I used to see it so if I started in 2007 and my granddad was here till 2018, that was a good 11 years that I was here with him. And I could see the tensions between my granddad's generation and my dad and Paul, and then they're starting to manifest a little bit now with regards to my generation and my dad's generation, because it's very difficult. How do you quantify their 40 to 50 years of experience versus your nearly 20 years experience that's not the same, but more current? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that yet. Is one more valuable than the others, or should they complement one another? It's a fine line to tread, and it can sometimes be a little bit contentious, but something that's very, very innate is the care for the business. You might not have literally built it from scratch yourself, but I certainly feel like I care about it as if I had. So that is something. There's a vein that runs through us all. That is that deep care for the business.
And I suppose having that sort of current common sort of goal, as it were, must help you all come together when things get fractious, which I'm sure they do from time to time.
Yeah, and again, that's something we could do with a little bit more clarity on, I think, because going back to I don't know if it is generational or just the way I do it versus the way they do it. We have all been guilty over the years of being very, very buried in the day-to-day and being so operationally invested that we haven't took the time to step back and really clarify where we're going, what we're doing, how we're going to do it, carve out that time for strategy. It's just, up until more recently, it's never really been on the radar. And I have no doubt that has cost us opportunities over the years that had somebody have just been looking up from the day to day, they would have been spotted. It's all shoulda, woulda, coulda though, and I don't really know for certain. It's just my feeling on the situation.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I'm sure you probably are right there as well. But that it must be tricky. I mean, I'd love to know, is there anything else about working in a family business that people might not understand, or things you'd want people to know? Because you're in such a unique position. And I speak to people sometimes here and they're just starting, they're just going into business with their brother or their mum or whatever. Is there anything you'd want someone in that situation to know?
I think that the more generations you have in the mixing pot, the more difficult it can probably get. I touched on how I entered the business earlier on, but when I said that I wasn't here for the first week because they got that temp in, that was because my granddad didn't want anybody in of childbearing age. Now, I was 21 at the time and quite away from having children, but that was kind of the first level of that you kind of had to navigate. And then, I mean, even early on when I was getting I don't know, positive feedback externally from customers and agents from what I was doing and how I was doing it, that was credited to, well, that's because she sat in front of a computer. So I think is that a family thing? Is it a generational thing? I don't really know. And then, I mean, how much of that was because I almost don't want to bring this into it, but how much of that was because I was a woman versus a bloke? I don't know. But then again, on the flip side, as I said, you get a lot of information. You get a lot of experience across all areas. You don't just sit in one function. Certainly I didn't anyway. And you learn very quickly because you have to. I don't think I'd have got the depth and breadth of experience from a commercial, corporate setting rather. I think that is innate to a family business. There is always kind of a misconception that, it must be nice being in a family business. And it is. You do get little perks, like I was at the gym this morning. I can do the school runs. I can not miss out on the school plays and so on. So there's that flexibility there that isn't always possible in the corporate setting. And I suppose that's the same as working for yourself, isn't it? Your time is to a point your own. There has definitely been a real mix, ups and downs, pros and cons, definitely challenges. But overall, I would say being in a family business is a positive. generalising.
Yeah, thank you. And one thing I was interested in, you were talking about, the different opportunities and the different areas you've been able to work in. Do you think that helps or hinders when you're in a family? So what I mean is I can understand that in some ways it might be easier to move around and try different roles in a family business. But then I guess on the other side of that, I suppose families don't want to be seen to, using favouritism or giving too many opportunities. So I guess that's a really hard thing to balance, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and I don't think we've got it right. I think there needs to be more clarity around and set roles, so that it's not to keep people in their lane, but duplication of work is unnecessary. Things slipping through the net, you could cut all that out. Who is responsible for what? I mean, I've never really been officially awarded a job title. I've just kind of picked ones up along the way based on what it is that I'm doing. So lack of clarity is definitely a downside in everybody getting involved in everything. But yeah, again, it goes back to that experience. Having been involved in everything, I know bits about everything, which is it's very useful when you're trying to put together the full picture, having that there.
Yeah. And I guess compared to working in a corporate role, it can be a lot harder to move roles, to try different things. So I guess there's pros and cons for everything, isn't there?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Well, thank you so much for all you shared, Holly. I've got one final question before we finish, if that's okay. And that's, what would your number one piece of advice be for other product business owners?
That's a difficult one, because when people ask me things like this, my initial reaction, rightly or wrongly, is what the bloody hell do I know? So, yeah, if I was going to go on I'd probably say focus on the product, because again, we haven't got everything right, because we've done products over the years that just haven't hit the nail on the head. Our branding could definitely be better. Our marketing would 100% be better. But despite all that, the product sells. So as far as I'm concerned, that tells you a lot. And tying into that, if I can count it as one bit of advice, it kind of goes back to what I said earlier about not being able to please everybody. You'll never be able to get it right for everyone. And going back to the regional things as well, we'll have customers down south who say there's too much black in that, because we do our 90% of our range assorted. And then you reduce the black, and then the customers up north say, I've run out of black now, the black sells too quickly, can you up it back again? Or they'll say, can you please sell this in block colours so we can choose the colours? And then you get 90% of the orders coming through saying, just send us assorted, it's fine. So don't knee-jerk react to a single piece of advice. Take a step back. Do your research, see whether there is that common consensus thread, to see whether you do need to make those tweaks, and do not try to please everybody, because you'll tie yourself in not doing so.
Thank you.
I don't know whether
Holly.
That's one piece or more of a philosophy, but hopefully that's okay.
No, it's brilliant, honestly. So, sometimes people give me one, sometimes I get 10, and it's brilliant. Anything in between. Okay. And it's all good. Thank you so much, Holly.
Thank you so much for listening right to the end of this episode. Do remember that you can get the full back catalogue and lots of free resources on my website, vickyweinberg.com. Please do remember to rate and review this episode if you've enjoyed it, and also share it with a friend who you think might find it useful. Thank you again, and see you next week. Hello, if you're selling on Amazon or you're planning to and you'd like ongoing support as you go, I've just opened the doors to my membership, Amazon Made Easy. It's a space for product-based business owners who want expert guidance, somewhere to ask questions, and a bit of structure and accountability while they build and grow on Amazon. Inside, you'll get regular live Q&A calls with me, optional co-working sessions, practical resources, and a supportive community of people all working on similar things. It's designed to make selling on Amazon feel clearer, simpler, and much less overwhelming, and to give you somewhere to go where you're stuck or unsure of what to do next. You can join at any time and stay for as long as it's helpful. And if you'd like to take a look, you'll find the full link in the show notes.